Reactive training systems.
Training volume is ineffective if you can't recover from it. The whole point of increasing your workload and pushing more training volume in your training has to have the assumption built in that you're going to be able to recover from this level of training. If you can't recover from it, then it's not doing you any good. Now, this concept leads us usually to one of two conclusions, or one of two generalities, I should say. You have people on one side that are going to generalize and say, yeah, recovery is important, but most people aren't approaching that threshold, so most people need to train harder. Then you have people on the other side of that says, recovery is the critical factor here, and it's better to undertrain than overtrain. So it's better to be a bit conservative with your overall training volume. And both of those miss the mark. Both of those are generalities that aren't good enough to be prescription. Okay? Your training volume, your training workload has to be dictated by your ability to tolerate work and your ability to recover from the training that you have. It's better to train appropriately rather than just follow one of these training generalities. The only thing is that training appropriately isn't something that's easy to put on the back of a t-shirt. It's not motivating. It doesn't help us feel better than the other people that we're competing against and whatnot. So it's hard to walk those middle grounds. Okay, so before, kind of in the old days, if you got as far as understanding this sort of idea, the next thing that you would need to do is basically trial and error a bunch of different things until you found out what allowed you to walk that line between pushing hard enough and recovering hard enough. Now we have an advantage that there's a lot of different techniques that we can use to track recovery in a somewhat more objective way. There's Track that we have on our website that's available for free. There's wellness questionnaires, there's HRV apps, and all these different things. And using something like that can help you figure out if you're recovering or not. And if you know that, then you know if you at least have the capacity to push your training harder or not. That doesn't tell you if pushing your training harder will be better for you in the long run, but it at least tells you if you have the capacity. If you are kind of on that line between not recovering and being okay in your current training program, then pushing more training workload is not going to solve any problems for you. If you're stagnating at your current workload, then it's got to be something else. Something else has to change. If you're already walking that recovery line, then something else has to change. You can't just push more work. So volume is important, but it's not generalizable because there's so much difference in terms of an individual's ability to tolerate work and recover from the work. And we could even talk about the impact of an athlete's weight class on stuff like this, and just a lot of different things. But the important thing is that the amount of work gets individualized to the athlete themselves. It's not driven by a generality. It's not driven by things that ought to happen. We have to look at how this lifter is doing, how are they recovering from the training that they're given, and make intelligent decisions from there.
Reactive training systems.